Hello! Today's stories come from r/malicious compliance. We have 3 stories today. Our first story is another with that guy. You know, that one guy you don't mess with because they've been there forever. Well, this next manager missed the memo. Story 1 is titled, Not 5 minutes early, but 10 minutes late, and it cost them a fortune. The 5-minute early post reminded me of a story that happened to a friend of mine. Let's call him Bobby. Bobby was a CNC machinist, a good one, and the only one. The company he worked for made an intricate product, and his CNC part was crucial. For those that don't know, a CNC machinist is a skilled tradesperson who works with precise metal cutting, shaping, and grinding equipment. The rest of the product bolted onto it. The finished product sold for tens of thousands of dollars. It took 3 hours to make this piece. Bobby would make 3 a day. He'd make one in the morning, take his coffee break, then make another, and take his lunch break. That ate up about 6.75 hours. He'd stay late to make the third part and make 2 hours of overtime. His new foreman turned out to be more than a bit of a jerk. He tried to get Bobby to do other tasks, and Bobby said no, as he needed to monitor the CNC machine during all stages of the cycle. Foreman complained to the plant manager, who told him to back off and leave Bobby alone. One day, there was a bad snowstorm, and Bobby was 10 minutes late. The foreman was there to greet him at the time clock, with a crap-eating grin on his face, holding a demerit slip. Bobby had clocked in a minute late the previous week, and the union rules said that if you were late twice within 14 days, you got 20 demerit points. Bobby and foreman got into a bit of an animated conversation, and the union steward came over and said that Bobby had no choice but to take the demerit hit. So Bobby went to work. His shift was 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., but he usually stayed until 6:30 to finish the last part. Not today. At 4:30, he shut the machine down and headed for the door. The next morning, foreman comes over and says that the assembly team is short a part. Yeah, I know. I'm working on it right now. It'll be done in 2 hours. But they need 3 a day. Why didn't you make 3 of them yesterday? Because my shift is over at 4:30 and I went home. What? You stay every night until the third part is finished. Bobby pulled the demerit slip out of his shirt pocket, looked the foreman in the eye and said, Not anymore. Bobby had done the math. Every week, instead of getting 15 parts, they were getting 10 or 11. Foreman tried to sweep it under the rug, but within a few days, chaos ensued. The assemblers had no core part, and their team went to the plant manager to let him know that production was falling. The assemblers liked it. They got to hang around yakking while they waited for the next CNC part to arrive. Eventually, there was a meeting with plant manager, foreman, union steward, and Bobby. Foreman tried to throw Bobby under the bus, saying that he refused overtime. Union steward pointed out that as per the contract, mandatory overtime was only in case of emergencies. And this wasn't an emergency. Bobby had every right to decline the OT. Foreman lost his temper, started yelling at Bobby and union steward, and was asked to leave the meeting. Plant manager knew he was screwed and looked at Bobby and asked, What's it going to take to get you to work the overtime? Bobby smiled and replied, As long as foreman is my supervisor, I won't be working a minute of overtime. And that was the last anyone saw foreman. By sticking to the contract, Bobby cost the company a handful of parts worth many thousands of dollars, and put the company into a position where their lowered production would cost them even more, in perpetuity. Bobby worked a couple of Saturdays to catch up and made double time for those shifts. They hired a new foreman who was explicitly instructed, Do not, under any circumstances, F with Bobby. In the comments, Bullfrog Paradox said, I like to think there's a new rule written in the margins of the employee handbook that just says, Thou shalt not F with Bobby. Quistaff added, I'm a supervisor at the hardware store I work at. There's a locksmith in town, George, who can fix any effing lock. He can make any key. He helps us out a few times a week, and we often refer customers to him. Every couple weeks, George and or his apprentice come and trade keys with us. Usually they give us common house car mailbox keys we often run out of, and we give them odd specialty keys, boat, motorcycle, weird old crap that the old owners kept. We return what he gives us and adjust the price on what he buys so it balances to zero. Every time. keeps our inventory correct, and more importantly, we do not charge George. I wrote this on the register guidebook and explain it to every new person we hire. We do not charge George. Ever. Bobby, George. There's something really special about people who are so good at their craft that they hold all the cards and all the power. Bobby stuck to his shift and cut production by 30%? That's legendary. Our second story shows that compliance is sometimes needed to point out an error. Story 2 is titled, No, I said okay. A few years ago, I was moving my business to a new location that needed 6 months to be built out. I informed our current alarm company a few months before the move that we'd be moving services, which for whatever reason they couldn't do. I had to open a new site on the account and then I could close the old one after the move. Sure, that's fine. They got all the details and sold me the newer system that would be connected to the internet so I could monitor it from my phone. Sounds great. So they told me they could install it next week, but I had to have the internet set up and running before they could do it. I informed them the phone lines and internet would not be installed until later, as I didn't want to pay for services we were not using. Also, that I would let them know when that was installed so they could come out for their install. Everything satisfied, the call was complete. A few days later, I started getting weekly phone calls from their installers telling me they were on their way to the new site to do the install. To which I had to go through the explanation of the internet won't be installed until later, and that I would call them and let them know when that was done. Each time they say, "Oh, okay, sounds good, we'll wait to hear from you." But then the following week, it would repeat again. On the 6th week, I got the same weekly call from the alarm company installer. "Hi, this is Jim, just letting you know we'll be at your site in about 30 minutes to do the install." So this time I said, "Okay." We hung up and I went back to work, which was happening at our current location. No workers or work was happening at the new site on this day. About 30 minutes later, I got a call from Jim saying the doors are locked and nobody is answering. I said, "I know, nobody is there today and the internet won't be installed until next month anyway." At this point, he starts getting agitated with me and asked why I scheduled an install for today and why I told him I'd be there when he called. I explained, "I didn't. You said you'd be there in 30 minutes. I said, okay." Amazingly, the calls stopped and I called them a couple weeks before the move and they came out and installed just fine. Edit. First, I want to say, wow, didn't expect such a huge response to this post. Almost 2 million views and 10,000 likes in under 24 hours? I've never posted anything on social media before, so it took me by surprise. Thank you for all the kind words. Wanted to answer a few questions asked in the comments as I tried to keep the story concise, so it didn't drag on. Yes, the company was ADT. The contract didn't start until they did the install, and install was free, so I wasn't paying for the install. Yes, I did call ADT customer service after the first installer called, saying they were on their way. That did not help. Besides letting the installer come out, I was never rude to or angry with them since I knew it wasn't their fault. I explained the situation just like I'd done the first 5 times. They just got caught up in the game. And I need to give credit to my uncle for this solution, as this was applied learning. He did something very similar to his sister a long time ago, and this story became a legend in my family. I've used it many times. In the comments, Strange as You said, "I had the same issue with ADT." OP replied, "Haha, it was ADT. I just didn't use their name." USA said, "When it becomes their problem, they suddenly cared." Marine said, "I would have found a different company. That level of incompetence is, pardon the pun, alarming, especially in a security company. I could not trust any company that was that inept, not only once, but several times in a row." OP, explaining 5 times is more than enough. When it's your time and your dime, no cares given. But when it's their time and money, well then. And to be clear, the installer probably still got paid, so it's not like he's out anything. Our third story has a man having a golden opportunity for payback dumped into his lap. Story 3 is titled, "Don't care about people calling me on your old number. I'll sort it." This was about 10 years ago. Also, English is my second language and I'm writing this on my phone, yada yada. I had just moved to Australia and gotten a new phone, but as it turns out, my number was someone else's old number. Every other week, I'd get calls by a tradie who wanted to know why I wasn't on site, mate, or what I wanted done with building project ABC. Every time, I explained at length that they got the wrong number, and quite often, folks on the other end were absolute rude. That, or they thought I was joking and insist I answered their question or show up on site now. I was over it, so I Googled my own number and did some digging, and eventually found out the guy who had my number before, then his new number, and then I called him. I politely explained my dilemma, pointed out that there were two websites still having his old, my now new, number, and if he could please change this. Also, to let his contacts know about his new number, and to delete the old one as it was getting quite tedious for me. By that time, I had used my number for work, visa applications, and landlords and friends, and changing it would have been a huge pain. I explained all of that. Well, of course, he was just as pleasant as most of his contacts and told me something along the lines of, "I don't give a F, mate. That's not my effing problem. Get effed. Sort your own shot out, mate." Well, the universe provides, and so I got a great opportunity to do just that only a few weeks later. I received a call in the early hours of one morning by another disgruntled guy telling me he was early and demanding to know where I wanted the sand put down and how to get in. I asked what sand and was told he had a full truckload of sand as ordered, and no one was on site and it was all fenced off. Very briefly did I think about launching into my explanation, but I was tired and over it, and then realized the opportunity provided. I snapped back at him with no uncertainty. "Mate, it's all good. Dump it all right in the driveway, front of the fence. We'll sort it out when we get there." The guy said, "You sure, mate? It's a lot of sand." "Absolutely sure, mate. Thanks a lot." "All right then, boss," and hangs up. Well, I go back to bed, snoozing for another hour with a big smile until my phone rings again. I see it's old mate with his new number who I had saved when I called him a few weeks ago. I pick up rather chipper, and he doesn't waste any time launching into a series of swear words and how he has no access to the site, and that he has to move a literal ton of sand by hand, and whether or not I told the sand guy to dump it all there. I replied, "You told me to sort this out myself. This is me sorting this out. You can remove the numbers and let your contacts know or not. Totally up to you, mate." He was fuming. Called me a few more choice words, promising to find me, and a lot more before we ended the conversation. However, the numbers disappeared from the internet really quickly after that, and I never got another call again. I still have my number, and every time I see a truck with sand, I chuckle to myself thinking of this guy moving a ton of sand by hand and losing a fair few hours of labor because he was an idiot and couldn't be bothered sending a few texts. In the comments, Andy Lanta said, "Pound sand, mate." New for Confession shared, "At my first corporate job, I was given a mobile phone for work stuff. Apparently, this number was previously assigned to another mobile belonging to quite a character. I used to get calls from people looking for a Dwayne and looking for a hookup of that good stuff. The first few times I politely say, 'Wrong number.' They would never believe me, and it started getting obscene with the late night calls and texts. Had to keep the phone on when on call duty. Eventually, I started answering if I didn't have the number saved. 'DEA, Field Office, Narcotics Division, Agent Smith speaking. What is the purpose of your call?' The late night drug calls stopped after 2 or 3 times doing that. At first, it seemed like the guy who originally had the number was trying to skip out on an unfinished contract or shoddy work. But nope, he's just an idiot. Oop, he should have told the guy to dump the sand and bring a second order, since the job just got way bigger." If you've enjoyed the story and would like to hear more, consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Thanks, and bye for now.